Although we've spent some time creating lines and fills, we haven't focused a lot on editing them. So this video will show you a few quick ways to manipulate existing lines and fills. Especially important in this video is adjusting to Flash's natural drawing methods. Let's begin by looking at something we learned earlier in this chapter, and that is by using the subselection tool, we can select a line and see the vertices, and if we select a single vertex, the control points or handles responsible for that portion of a curve. Having done so, we can manipulate the point by moving it. We can grasp the control points and adjust their position and adjust the subtleties of the curve. We've already seen that in action, so now we want to take the opposite approach. We want to just grab a line and start working with it. So if we switch to our selection tool and then come down here to this rectangle, when we mouse over the side of the rectangle, we get some cursor feedback. That curved line indicates that the mouse is over a line, and that line can be easily selected and dragged. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll drag the line out to the side and we'll see a natural curve. The line curves and the fill automatically adjusts and fills into the new void created by the change in line. When we move our mouse over a corner point, we get similar feedback. Here, that corner icon gives you the idea that your mouse is over a corner point that you can grab and move away. Again, when you let go, the fill will adapt and fill in that void, and the two lines that attach through that point remain intact. Let's undo. Again, Command-Z on Mac and Control-Z on Windows. And now let's look at a combination of both Bezier curve and natural drawing working together. So let's choose the Pen tool, and we'll come down to the Add Anchor Point tool specifically, and we'll come over to the side of our rectangle, and we'll simply go over the line and add a vertex. As you drag away, you can see there's a midpoint in that line that was previously solid between only the two corner points. Obviously, we can use the techniques we just witnessed with the Bezier curve approach, or we can go back to our selection tool and then select only a portion of that line. The newly inserted vertex allows us to now use natural techniques to apply only the deformation that we're interested in applying. Another important thing to note is that these deformations are not only applicable to strokes. If you recall from an earlier video, we can double-click a stroke to select its entirety, delete, and now we're working strictly with a fill, and yet we can still apply the same deformations we were working with earlier. When we look at drawing modes at the end of this chapter, we'll realize the full potential of shapes interacting with each other, but for now let's focus on selecting and applying the stroke and fill attributes of shapes. On the right side of the stage, I have 4 shapes, some with fills and strokes, some just with fills. Let's take a look at how the eyedropper works in Flash. Instead of just isolating a color, the Flash eyedropper will pull the attributes of a fill or stroke. If, for example, we come over to the first shape and eyedrop on the stroke, you'll see a little cursor feedback there indicating that you're over a stroke. You can click, and then you'll note that the color has changed to black, and the default tool has now changed to an inkwell. The inkwell is the bucket for strokes. It will apply the inherited stroke attributes to another stroke. For example, if I come over to our now strokeless blob here, we can click on the outside of that form and it will automatically apply the same thickness and color of the stroke chosen by the eyedropper. Going back to the eyedropper again, this time we'll click on a fill. Notice the cursor feedback has changed to a little brush. Now instead of pulling the color and thickness and so on of the stroke, we pull the color attributes of the fill. So we can come down again to our blob and apply the new blue color, and you see the changes complete. So if I wanted to apply the same black stroke yellow fill attributes of this rectangle to the oval beneath it, I would need 2 operations. I can pull the eyedropper over to inherit the stroke attributes, and then inkwell to the stroke down here, and then I go back again to the eyedropper and pull the fill attributes, and again bucket down in this shape here. Another handy thing to know is how to change a stroke to a fill. Let's switch to our selection tool and work with this shape down here. What if we wanted to apply a second border to this shape? If we revert to our inkwell and choose another color to demonstrate, let's choose a green, and we apply the inkwell to the outside of this stroke, you'll see that instead of adding a stroke, the existing stroke changes. This is because your inkwell has manipulated the attributes of the existing stroke. If you want to, in essence, double stroke this shape, you can select that stroke using the selection tool, double-click to select all, and then go to Modify, Shape, Convert Lines to Fills. That will change the stroke to a fill. There won't be any outward appearance change, but now you can deselect, for example, go back to the inkwell, choose an entirely different color, let's say black in this case. To help show the difference, let's reduce the stroke height, and then inkwell on the outside of the green, and you will see, in fact, a double stroke. You can even apply a stroke between the two fills because the blue fill can be stroked. This gives you a nice double outline look. Again, this is achievable by converting the stroke to a fill to begin with. Let's select this stroke here, come up to the Modify menu, Shape, Convert Lines to Fills. Let's change that fill color to make it a little more obvious. Let's change it to white. And then let's choose the inkwell again, and then stroke the outside of the new fill. A deselect will help show that white border, and you get a double stroke effect.